Welcome to the Business of Platforms, a video podcast series where Vivaldi will be chatting with the world's leading marketers, thinkers, and innovators about the evolution of business and the exciting ways in which platforms are helping companies and brands deliver greater value.
Hey everybody, it's Tom Agello from Vivaldi Group. How are you? Excited to sit down with you today on our third installment of our Business of Platforms podcast series. And talk to you a little bit about further about how brands and businesses grow. Lucky today for all of us, we have a really great special guest, Aaron Schildkrout, in the studio with us.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you bet. You've been obviously an investor and advisor to a lot of brands and businesses. One of your most recent experiences was with Uber, obviously, as a member of the senior member of the product team, on the marketing team, obviously leading a lot of their efforts, which is exciting to us because obviously we are very excited about platforms, platform businesses, ecosystems, the sharing economy and the sharing of data, and how our clients and partners, how the businesses all around us can benefit from understanding how their businesses can leverage the network effects of similar things. I'd love for you to just kind of maybe start us off by talking about your experience at HowAboutWe, what you learned through that process, and how that compares to the kinds of businesses that you currently advise today, and maybe throw in a little bit of Uber there, and just kind of tell us a little bit about what's changed, what's the same, where the watch-outs are, and just in general what your reactions are to the space we're in today.
Okay. Well, again, thanks for having me. It's awesome to be here. So the last 10 years, I've basically spent working on platforms, to use the language that you guys are using here, and particularly marketplaces. So of various kinds. The first company I created was called HowAboutWe. It was an online dating site, basically, which was very much a two-sided marketplace. Although it's a strange word to use for a dating site. It's such a human interaction. I worked at Uber, as you mentioned, which is an archetypical marketplace and platform. And I advise, again, many companies, and a lot of them are building marketplaces and platforms in various kinds. And I'm personally very attracted to those kinds of businesses and those kinds of projects for a lot of reasons. I think for me, in some ways, the deepest reason is because of the profound value that they unlock that was previously nascent, hidden, underutilized. The power of building a network of people or institutions that can interact in ways that are facilitated by technology, again and again has been shown, particularly I think in the last 10 years, to facilitate this incredible unwrapping of value that was previously locked in the system. So if you're an Uber driver, you're able to spend all of this time earning money, driving folks around who request through the app, as opposed to in a world where there was previously where there was an enormous amount of overhead to provide that service, which would distract from the creation of that pure value.
And often we talk about, I'm just going to hop in on that really quick, but we talk about how these opportunities are often hiding in plain sight, right?
If you build a platform that facilitates a new kind of creation, so if it's very business oriented, something like Shopify, I think would be a great example. To use a classic example, YouTube, Instagram, etc. These are creating a space that motivates and makes easy a new form of creation. And the power of that is manyfold. One, there's great value in people building new businesses, creating new art, etc. But it also serves as a distribution mechanism for the thing itself. And so, even a Squarespace, something like that.
Sure.
But to use the Shopify example, if I want to create a new meditation cushion business, first of all, that would have been very hard previously, and now it's much, much easier. So all of a sudden, there's some dope meditation cushions in the world that wouldn't have been there. And if anybody listening to this wants to build a meditation cushion business with me, I'm down. And then additionally, I'm going to go distribute my meditation cushions all over the internet and say, look at these amazing meditation cushions that are going to help you attain instant enlightenment. And in doing that, I'm going to drive traffic back to whatever platform I'm using for doing that, for selling those cushions.
Yeah. It's interesting. We think a lot about as well participants in the platform contributing to the greater good of the data that gets shared amongst the other participants. So,
well, actually, I think Uber, to use a very subtle example, like every additional ride provides a ton of additional data about things like routing, mapping, pricing, etc.
Yeah.
And so it can happen in a very kind of like obvious way or in deep, subtle ways that allow the kind of core infrastructure that powers the platform to get incrementally better.
Yeah, and on that note, I'm currently fascinated with Thumbtack, who is literally making the market on wedding invitation creators, where if you were to buy a wedding invitation creator or hire one previously, you wouldn't know really what the market rate is, and they've done this really great thing with their data exposing all of it. So now a wedding invitation creator can't expose the market nor be exposed by the market, because it's easy for anybody to just go in and see what it would cost to have one and why that matters.
And I actually think for people whose labor, there are many things where somebody's labor is actually more valuable than they had previously been being compensated for it. Awkward sentence, but you get the idea. And the marketplaces and platforms actually unlock the truth of how valuable it is, and help them to unlock that value personally. I think that's really profound.
Yeah, we say a lot, it's not about what you own anymore, but about who or what you network. And that's really true. Who or what would Uber network, or would Uber consider networking, maybe looking forward into the future? Like, what's that roadmap look like?
Well, a couple thoughts. So, one, the most powerful sort of baseline experience for Uber is on the driver side. It allows a massive swath of people to start earning income by doing something that they can be great at with whatever increment of time they have. And that's super new. That was a genuine revolution for millions and millions of people, and continues to be. On the rider side, it provided this incredible level of access that didn't exist before, particularly in like cities that didn't have amazing public transportation, and where finding a taxi was difficult. On top of that, Uber's built a number of actually amazing businesses, and I think Uber Eats is the best example of that. And so it allows all of a sudden all these restaurants to get this access to customers that wouldn't have existed before at amazing scale. And I think you'll see this trend continue, where not only Uber but many places, people build a platform, and that platform actually has a set of assets and connections and relationships and data that facilitates the building of another platform on top of it. And so you see this layering effect start to happen, which gets to be very, very powerful. Amazon, I think, is probably the best example of that, but Uber is definitely another one. You're
obviously incredibly well-schooled and charismatic and articulate, and I understand you, as we talked about, you're not just an investor and an entrepreneur and an advisor, but you started your career in education. How does education and what you learned in education and maybe your process and experience there contribute to what you do on a daily basis today?
Yeah. So I was a teacher really for the whole first part of my career in Boston at an amazing school called Codman Academy. And it was a high school. Now it's K through 12, pre-K through 12. And I think the most obvious thing was, I wanted to work on the internet. That's how I got into this platform business world that we're talking about. I thought the internet was, and still think, is the most revolutionary thing that's happened in my lifetime. And I wanted to build on top of that and participate in building that. When I started making businesses and working on businesses, I realized that the skill set required to be a great teacher was exactly the same in many regards as the skill set required to be a great leader, manager, business creator. A classroom is a microcosm of the world, and I just found a lot of the things that I had struggled with and learned and refined and honed in the classroom were literally identical to or extremely similar to what I needed to learn and refine and get better at.
Our kids are learning things. Gen Z is learning things right now that we had to, they know things that we had to learn, and they don't even know they know them. And their expectations, right, are so on a spectrum of expectation setting, right, are so on that other end. And we thought of ourselves growing up as, having these high expectations of the brands and businesses that we grace our attention with. I think about the business environment and needing to meet those expectations. That's a trajectory, as you said, that doesn't go away. How do companies weather that storm? How do they participate in a world that basically Gen Z is creating around us?
Couple things. The first is that I really believe that the way that you work as an organization has a massive impact on whether you're able to unlock the value that's sitting inside your own organization. And the difference between really amazing entrepreneurial, innovative execution and wannabe innovation, wannabe entrepreneurism is night and day. And if you get it right, you will unlock amazing potential. And if you get it wrong, you will have a lot of mediocre ideas that fall flat. And it's subtle. And so getting that right, really figuring out how to unlock that entrepreneurial spirit inside of a company is very hard, but that is the critical thing in my mind. Because
so start internally.
I believe that you have to find a way to work that unlocks entrepreneurism, because it is entrepreneurs, it is people with ideas and vision that are incentivized to and supported to create breakthroughs with the assets that they have at hand. That is how innovation occurs, again and again. And it's really, really hard for companies who make money and exist through incrementalism and through the steady effort of cutting costs and increasing margins and slowly staying ahead of the game. That is the death knell of innovation. And so figuring out how to do both at the same time, keep growing your core business and build something else that's actually magical and changes the game, that is really tough.
Yeah.
But that to me is the secret.
So they start internally. They have their precious magical piece of innovation or something that they're very excited about. Maybe it's only been tested internally. Maybe there's an internal group of stakeholders who are really excited. I would liken that to an entrepreneur with their idea. What do they do next?
Well, I would say even before that, they need to talk to their customers. So the worst thing is a bunch of people sitting in a room thinking that they have great ideas and spending a long time working on that idea and getting it right, and never talking to the people who actually matter, which is your customers.
You need to have those people, both the kind of unwashed, if you will, consumer, but also those people around you in your circle that are the positive contrarian, right? Like you need somebody telling you, I'm not sure.
Right,
or, prove it to me.
Yeah, exactly. Like good luck with the regulatory challenge there.
Yeah.
You need both sides, I think. But above all, you need the customer, I think if you don't go out and talk to people or get your product in the hands of people quickly to see if that magic exists. I was on the board of Jump, which is a electric bike company. It's a great example. If you told somebody, hey, we're going to replace City Bike with electric bikes, you'd be like, I don't know. And when you get on a Jump bicycle, you're like, oh, this is the most amazing transport experience that I have ever had. In San Francisco, I can bike between meetings up hills and not sweat, which for a sweaty human like me is actually a big deal.
Sure.
You have to experience the product. And so I think, you simply must engage with your customers early and often, because the product is not for you, it's for them.
Yeah. We often, a plug maybe for a partner of ours, but we often use user testing a lot, usertesting.com, to just get, 100 reactions really quickly and just get a sense of what's happening out there.
It's a great solution.
And a lot of times in our workshops, we'll spend 2 to 5 days with our clients from kind of idea to execution with a whole fail fast mentality. One of the key components in that is, okay, so we've got a couple of these babies. Let's get them out there. Let's see what people think about them. What are you thinking? A client that we're working with right now has a constituency of 200 people that they keep on speed dial that are right in the sweet spot of the customer base, constantly grooming that, constantly talking to them for the opportunity where we'll come along and, drop a few different prototypes in front of them and see what they think of it.
Yeah, we did. We launched a new, I think it's still in progress actually, app for drivers, and many changes, and we built a massive global testing system for that across, I think it was 5 or 6 countries, and we wanted to put the product early, even if it had all sorts of issues, in the hands of drivers and really see what they thought. And I just feel like that's best practice. Stealth, come on, like the enemy of innovation. There are some cases where it makes sense, but in almost all cases it actually, I think, doesn't. It's just totally key to see what the people you're building for believe about your product, and then iterate quickly and kill bad ideas quickly.
Yeah, and kill bad ideas quickly, or support something and give you the understanding of, this is worth investing a little bit more in and pushing it to the next level. So this is great. It's really good to do this in a formal setting, getting a lot out of this. Hopefully you are. You've done a lot of stints at all different kinds of companies, and I'm sure as an educator, you're also a lifelong learner. What are some things that you've learned along the way, just at the different companies, or which ones have been the most instructive in just your trajectory and where you're headed next?
The history of my learning, lots of learning. I would say right now, things I'm thinking about. I don't know if for this audience, this insight makes a lot of sense. It actually might be contrarian, but I've been thinking a lot about the power that's added to work if you really, really believe in, and I mean that very broadly, like the thing that you're creating. And so I think back to work I've done, and when I've done great work, it's always coincided, and I think there's real causality here, with feeling and being passionate about the result and the impact and the mission behind what I was doing. But that sounds sort of obvious, but it hasn't always been obvious. So it could just be that it engages my intellectual curiosity in a way that's really profound. It doesn't have to save lives. That's cool too. But
find a way to believe, have something in it that you believe in, which becomes that. I have a poster that I keep with me at all times it just says "Don't give up." And a lot of the spirit of that, behind that, is in, for me anyway, as you're speaking to me, is in what you're saying, in that you have to find, one, that belief system, and two, that thing that pushes you tomorrow and the next day and the next day, right?
It has to feed your stamina.
Yeah.
Or else you won't be able to keep going. And it does take a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I like to say innovation doesn't happen, gravity does, and it's real. It's all around you. It's a force. We all want to poke holes in things. Things generally don't want to, become viral or have network effects or scale. And in a lot of ways, it's up to us to be able to, it's a war of attrition, I guess, right? In terms of getting things out there, especially as a resident innovator or an entrepreneur, or somebody who was responsible for change in an organization. Those are critical things.
Yeah, you have to love it. You have to really love it. I think if you don't love what you're doing and you're just doing it because it's a clever idea, or we need to innovate, or one of these other reasons, it doesn't have this kind of spiritual essential quality that most inspired great things have.
I love that. You mentioned this you kind of got into this about talking about learning. So it sounds like maybe this is kind of like coming full circle for you now. Is that the big thing you're learning right now, or is there something else that that's really got your attention? Yeah.
I'm loving helping CEOs build their companies right now, just personally. I'm finding that kind of relationship really fulfilling. I historically always felt like I needed to be in charge, and like oriented myself towards, well, I'm going to be the creator, I'm going to build. And I still have that instinct in me in some ways, but I've been experiencing recently the power of supporting other people to build and finding that really gratifying. And in that, I think the deeper learning is like knowing what you're great at and enjoy, and making sure that you, and if you're a leader, all the people on your team, actually even more importantly, have that kind of nature role fit. And the power that unlocks.
Yeah,
so I've been experiencing that a lot.
You're growing a lot there for sure. What's the consistent thread you see across all of those CEOs, across all of those entrepreneurs, across all of those businesses that you've met with? If you could shine a light through them, what are some commonalities?
There's some fundamental hunger, ambition, some core drive to make something and have something that's theirs manifest in the world that empowers them to deal with the incredible challenges that come with this very particular job, which is like CEO creator. And it is very hard. It is more than one order of magnitude, almost like a different dimensional of hardness to run a company, like really run a company and build a company, than it is to operate at a very senior level. Operating at a senior level can be, COO, president, chief of X, et cetera, can be quite stressful, challenging, taxing, et cetera. It is in a completely different league from actually running a company and from founding it. And so it takes a lot. So you really need to have this unquenchable need to create.
What's a common pitfall you see across them? A common setback they all experience?
The unquenchable need to create.
It's a double-edged sword.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. It is. Ask every founder. Every founder struggles with this. Everyone. Now, there are some people who just love it and it's perfect for them. But I would say most people who are founding or running companies both love it and just know this is what they must be doing and recognize that it is really tough.
And you play that role often, I would imagine, of seeing the forest for the trees a little bit and helping pluck out the gems and kind of separate the madness. And I think probably
I sometimes create more madness.
Oh, sure. Well, that's good too.
I have a lot of empathy. I think it's amazing. Like, we need people to keep transforming our world, and it's a very bold set of people who do that, and we need to support them, I think, because they're risking a lot, and I think it's important.
So it's going to take us back to meditation cushions for a second.
Are you going to start a Shopify meditation business?
Let's do it. So you it's funny, we kind of played this little moment there. It was like, the person who couldn't get their meditation cushion story and product out there suddenly has a platform to do that. It gets out there. Of course, if that theoretical meditation cushion entrepreneur now has this platform to do that, we all now have access to meditation cushions more than ever before, and so on and so forth. The promise, effectively, of platforms in a way. So what else? What is this new world? What is that business dynamic? What is the effect of marketplaces? What other promises do they offer the world around us?
Unlock hidden value, fractionalize that value into the smallest usable pieces that are possible, so that people can specialize and do the thing they are great at, and so that technology can take over and do all of the things that don't require people, in my opinion, with a lot of guardrails to make that safe for our children and our planet. Create new forms of art that wouldn't have otherwise existed, and new forms of I guess, product, incredible value, massive efficiency gains for everybody, more access to things that they wouldn't have had previously, empowering people to be creators and entrepreneurs. The meditation cushion guy or girl wouldn't have been able to do that previously. They wouldn't have had Instagram to distribute this thing. They wouldn't have had Shopify to run everything, Dolan payments, incredible power there. Transforming industries that are less obvious targets for, the tech set. Like there are, every industry on the planet is ripe for disruption along these lines. You can't name one that isn't, and that will bring, I think, more efficiency and better quality of life and so forth to all the people working in those spaces. So a lot of value.
Yeah, and those pain points are hiding in plain sight, right? They're sitting out there. There was a time when you're standing at the top of the hill in San Francisco and there were no cabs in sight. You might not be able to get from point A to point B without sweating.
I mean, look
your
at scooters.
proverbial arse.
Look at scooters.
Yeah.
No one was thinking about scooters even a year ago. And I believe they're about to pervade our cities across the globe, maybe a year and a half ago. And so that's totally in plain sight. Literally, you had City Bike sitting in New York City and similar systems in every city, in every major city in the world. And, there's some technical innovation, but it took, I don't know, some kind of magic set of events in order to unlock what is now such an obvious transformation in short form transport. There's a ton. Yeah,
discovering those hidden moments or unsanctioned paths. A lot of times, it could be customers talking to customers, technology. There's just latent innovation and opportunity sitting right in front of you. We like to say often customers are making their own path or making their own road despite your misgivings or despite you not serving them. They're actually figuring it out. Your job might be to find out what they're figuring out and support it.
And there are a lot more of them than there are of you, so it's very likely that they have the innovation.
Yeah, they figured it out for sure.
Also, you're very busy. Like creating time for creativity is hard.
Yeah.
So,
you're. I understand you were an avid reader. What's on your reading list?
My reading list. I've been reading The Gene recently, which is awesome. I don't know that much about. I went through a normal education system and therefore remember nothing from my science education, even though I was pretty serious about science at the time, or thought I was. And so this book walks through the kind of history of the discovery of the gene broadly conceived. And I'm only 3/4 of the way through, so I don't know what the last piece is about. But one, it's an amazing adventure in science. And it's extremely well written and just super well done, I think. And the level of fascination that I have for this code that determines your nature and much of your functioning is high. So
nice.
Really, really fun.
Well, you've clearly got good genes, so that's a good thing. And I would say, we're kind of getting in the home stretch here. So, given that and your good genes and all the wisdom that you brought to us today, any parting words, parting thoughts, parting wisdom, either to the entrepreneurs and the innovators alike out there, or maybe to your younger self, that you'd like to leave us with?
I think, just thinking about what we've been talking about, big themes that pop up, doing something that you really think matters feels just essential. The power that comes with that to withstand all the challenges that are inevitably there when you're trying to create something new or disrupt. That feels extremely key. And then the way you work, we kind of touched on that as an idea, but haven't gone into the details, and maybe that's for another time. But I think being extremely thoughtful about how to empower people to be innovators, either your customers, your team, outsiders you bring in. How do you get people to feel that spirit of creation, and to really let that be unleashed. I think that is extremely key and very hard. And so, I guess I'd encourage everybody to put their egos on that meditation mat and help people unlock it.
Hire better than themselves.
Well, and then let those people be great.
Yeah, and unlock them. That's great. That's awesome advice. Really good. Awesome advice for all of us. Well, I think that gets us to our closing. Aaron Schildkrout, everybody, thank you so much for joining us. If you want to let people know a Twitter handle or email address.
Schildkrout, my last name.
Nice. We'll flash that on screen for you guys. Thanks again. Thanks for Vivaldi. Thanks from myself, Tom Agello, and the rest of the team. Looking forward to seeing you guys back here soon.